Welcome, everybody, to Sports Wars continued college football previews for 2021. Today, we travel down to the swamp and the Florida Gators in the SEC East. They are coming off a extraordinary offensive season, but a season that still ended up in only 8 wins and 4 losses, with a big loss in the SEC title game where they were surprisingly competitive to some against the ultimate national champion, Alabama. Now, while Dan Mullen is known for his offensive tactical skills and strategies and schemes, during his tenure at Mississippi State and during his tenure at Florida, the offenses have been average to good. It has often been the defenses that have actually been the hallmark of his most winning teams, aside from when he has an NFL-capable quarterback, such as Tim Tebow, who, though he only lasted a few years, still made it and even started and won playoff games in the NFL. Then, of course, Dak Prescott, still the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback, and then most recently Kyle Trask, who should also make the league. By contrast, when he's had any other quarterback, his offense was usually the middle of the pack at Mississippi State and good, but not elite at Florida. So expect that even though this Florida team is more talented offensively than what he had at Mississippi State, expect it to revert more to the mean of a good offense rather than an elite offense like the one they had last year, with so much critical personnel, particularly at quarterback, lost. And what's coming in is more of the old-school Dan Mullen scheme that's going to be run-oriented, but not likely to be as explosive in the passing game as last year's unit was. The Florida defense is the big question mark for this team. Last year's defense wasn't even average. It was just plain bad. It was weak. Gave up over 6 yards per play. It was a defense that got torched by a wide range of offenses, not just Alabama, but offenses like Ole Miss or LSU at critical junctures in their upset win in Gainesville that derailed any Gators chance at a national championship bid or a playoff bid. So the question is, will it be improved this year? Well, it's the same defensive coordinator and a lot of the same personnel, so there's good reasons to doubt if you watch the film last year that this defense simply seemed to have both personnel and scheme problems that are unlikely to be fixed by simply one more year of experience. Where else but college football do people get excited about having this somebody back and saying, oh, well, they're more experienced this year, even though they're the person that was not that good in the same scheme the year before? Does anybody in the NFL or NBA or many other sports say, well, it's that player who didn't play well last year. He's back for one more year, so magically he's going to be better. That usually doesn't quite translate beyond the jump from freshman to sophomore in some personnel and in some schemes. So what are the Gators' chance for 2021? The over-under in Vegas is 9. Now, Dan Mullen in his first 2 full non-COVID seasons topped that win total both times in Gainesville. So what are his chances of topping it this year? Let's look at the schedule. Florida starts out at home against Florida Atlantic. That should be an easy win, double-digit win. Then Florida travels to South Florida, who's in complete rebuilding mode. That should be a crushing win. But then Florida gets the big one. They draw Alabama from the SEC West. But they get them at home in Gainesville, and they get an Alabama team that is also replacing even more critical offensive skill position personnel, as Alabama's replacing 90% of their rushing yards, 90% of their passing yards, and 90% or more of their receiving yards. And while they have a lot of talent, indeed, again, they're the most talented team in the country by far, and are substantially more talented than Florida. Florida's likely to have 15 or so players off of this 2-deep make the NFL, which does not qualify them in the current playoff era to be a likely playoff contender or a national champion contender, but is sufficient enough to pull off the occasional upset, which Dan Mullen himself has had a habit of doing over his tenure and career. So while Alabama will be, and deservedly so, heavily favored in the game, Florida does have a fighting chance at an upset, catching Alabama early at home in the season. But we favor Alabama to pull off the win. Then Florida catches Tennessee. There's a long history in the SEC that teams that lose to Alabama the next week continue to have an Alabama-sized hangover and an elephant-sized hangover. And consequently, this is a chance where Tennessee might shock everybody as big underdogs to pull the upset. The last time they did so was when Tennessee in 2001 in Steve Spurrier's last game in the Swamp lost to Tennessee as an 18-point favorite with a national and SEC title bid on the line. So the question is, the odds may be just as big this time around. Well, it's a long shot Tennessee does have a shot due to when and where they catch Florida in the schedule, but we still favor the Gators to win. Then Florida travels to Kentucky. Kentucky has occasionally tripped up Florida. Kentucky's got a new offensive schema and has some talent and capability and coaching ability with Mark Stoops at the defensive side of the ball, but we still favor Florida, as Florida still has a substantial double-digit level talent edge on Kentucky, and that Florida will win. Next, Florida gets Vanderbilt at home, homecoming, game over in the first quarter. Then Florida travels to LSU in their SEC West traditional rivalry. LSU, of course, shocked them last year, beating them in Gainesville. Now, Florida kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple of times in that game and might have been asleep walking into the game. And it'll depend here also on what Florida's mindset and mentality is if they get surprised early in the year, say back-to-back with losses at Alabama and Tennessee, whether they will have this young new offense of personnel have the mindset to not pull what Florida did against Oklahoma in the bowl game last year, where they just decided to literally mail it in. But as long as Florida is meaningfully engaged, they are about as talented as LSU, and LSU itself has big questions in this bounce-back potential season of whether they will be boom or whether they will be bust. We still favor LSU to win at home in Baton Rouge. The Gators get a bye, and then they get the annual cocktail party against the Bulldogs of Georgia. But Georgia has a substantial talent edge, as in double-digit point spread level talent edge on Florida, and we favor Georgia to restart its own streak of wins against the Gators and the neutral site in Jacksonville. That would be the second, or potentially third, loss for Florida on the season. Then Florida travels to South Carolina. South Carolina has some scattering talent, but they got a first-year coaching staff and injury questions at quarterback. That does not bode well for the Fighting Chickens, even in Columbia. We favor Florida to win. Then Florida gets Samford at home. That game's over in the first 3 minutes probably. Then Florida travels to Missouri, where the Mizzou have been an occasional Achilles heel of the Gators in the decade since the Missouri has joined the SEC East. And there's a lot of people in the SEC that are hyped up on Missouri this year, but I'm not one of them. The talent edge is a double-digit level spread talent edge, and I believe unless the Gators have decided to completely go to sleep on the season, that they will walk into Missouri and prevail. Last but not least, Florida gets their annual rival against the Noles. They get them at home in the Swamp, and this is very much a talent rebuilding Florida State team. This Gators team has a double-digit spread level talent advantage over this Florida State team. We expect Florida to be ready and pumped for this rivalry game and see the Gators as winning. So we end up predicting Florida will lose to Alabama, LSU, and Georgia and finish at 9-3, which means we think Vegas has pinned their win total right on the nose. That's about it, folks. So no recommended bet from sportspicks.locals.com. If you want free football picks and predictions all year long, go to sportspicks.locals.com. And remember, continue to like, share, and subscribe these videos here at Sports Wars, where you'll be getting college football, pro football, English Premier League, and all kinds of other sports analysis, including from a unique betting perspective, all year long as well. Thanks, everybody.